What's going on, and welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate, the Belt Baseball's beginner show. I am the host, Dominic Crescetto, joined by the co-host, Seth Johnson and Marv Dickens, and I am proudly supporting our App State Mountaineers after Austin's big game this weekend. Austin St. Laurent, our guest last week, great weekend. Ambassador, yeah, future ambassador. But yeah, man, just a great weekend for him. For a lot of the top teams, as we've called this show, the top teams keep winning. Sans maybe Louisiana. I know some people were kind of questioning where they might end up this year, but they've had some early season struggles, but they've had some decent opponents. But before we get too far along, we are brought to you in part by collegefootballdogs.com, part of the Dogs Media Network. And we have a sponsor known as W Energy. Enter promo code SB Syndicate down below to help us out as an affiliate sponsor and try out some of their new flavors. They've got one that tastes like liquid sour gummy bears. Almost twisted my tongue trying to get that one out. But fellas, before we get rolling, how you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. Not bad for a Monday. What about y'all?
Nice.
Really good.
Yeah, I've been a little better on the work side of things, but this is the prime time. This is the fun time. So I've been looking forward to this all night. It looks like you got your Braves jersey on over there today, Seth. Is that right?
Oh yeah. I caught a couple college baseball games this weekend and spring training going on. So it's baseball's in full gear now, man.
Yeah, weather's starting to break. Definitely, at least for Marv and I out here on the more eastern part of the state. Marv, you've been getting outside a little bit more here lately?
Yeah, it's almost 70 today. So I'm going to wear my Johnson County Little League shirt. Little League's in full swing down here. Had our third practice. My kids' travel ball team. We're 5 weeks into practice here. So it's not only baseball season in the Belt, but it's baseball season here at the house. Yeah,
absolutely. And you guys won't know this, but in our little text conversation, Marv sent us a picture of a fully loaded SUV for this weekend's baseball that he had to tote around with him. And he asked us if he was then qualified to do a podcast. I said, I think you're overqualified at that point.
This is a youth baseball podcast, maybe. But yeah, we'll wing it.
There you go. Well, you probably know more about bats and balls than I do. So, it's definitely a help regardless of the level that is being played. So you're keeping familiar, you're seeing the game a lot, which is awesome. And I know that's translating because both of you and myself included, obviously, man, we just text all weekend about what's going on across the Sun Belt in baseball, shocking scores, surprises in good ways, surprises in bad ways. So yeah, it's been a blast. I've never been more into baseball than I am right now. I was just looking before the show started at some App baseball gear. They just launched their online store. They got some nice Nike stuff, by the way. So
yeah, they're proud of it too.
Yeah, exactly. that is without a doubt. So we would also like to. I don't think we've really ever pushed this before, but this is a live show, folks. No matter who you're a fan of, we share this across all the platforms that we can, and like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do, but come and talk some ball with us. We will interrupt the show and take your questions or comments and throw them up on screen as well. So don't be scared to do that. We welcome that interaction for sure. Without further ado, let's set the stage here. Again, we called this episode Top Teams Keep Winning. So we'll get right into it, guys. First one up, we're going to go in alphabetical order so we all kind of know what's coming here. But we had App State playing down in Hickory, Seth, and why don't you start us off? You went to Sunday's game, did you not?
Yeah, we went down yesterday. We had some nice weather, so we traveled down the mountain. App's rolling. Took 3 from Siena. I think the bats were the big story of the weekend for App. Overall, App's 6-1. Austin, number 7, had him on the show last weekend. We like to think we're a little bit of good luck. Friday, Marv was texting me. I was at the Tennessee baseball game this weekend. Austin went 3 for 6 with 2 home runs and 5 RBIs in Friday's game. Yesterday, App had back-to-back home runs. Boyd Tolley, which is the Ole Miss transfer, and Holderbrook. Pitching yesterday, Chirico, App's Sunday guy had he only had 5 innings, but he had 9 Ks. So that was a personal record for him. I was looking before we came on. App's top half, everybody's hitting over 300 right now. Granted, we're only 2 weeks in, but I think we've got enough of a sample size to start to where we can actually start digging in a little bit here. App, like I said, App, we talked about in the first episode. App doesn't play a true home game until mid-March when Coastal comes to town. So a lot of games are being played on the road or being played down the road as a home game, if you will, in Hickory. But
how was the real quick? How was the turnout down? I mean, obviously only Sunday, not Friday and Saturday. But how was the turnout Sunday?
There's a good amount of people there. If you remember, App's got the Hickory campus now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a whole nother dynamic to playing in Hickory. You know, the basketball team had a game in Hickory this year as well, so they're kind of catering to that hour drive in between now. So
makes a lot of sense.
But looking at App's schedule going ahead, they got ETSU this week and then travel to Southern Illinois. So
ETSU's a solid.
They've got, I think, their next. Yeah. I think the next 10 games that App's got on the road, so that off to a 6-1 start. So the next week and a half, 2 weeks will tell us a lot about this ball team.
Yeah, no doubt. Marv, any thoughts on it was not on ESPN Plus.
No, that's been the frustrating thing. Outside of the JMU game this year, or not JMU, the High Point game. Yeah. That's the only game that we've had on TV, so you can't watch them. Everything I've read seems like defensively, apparently we're playing fantastic. Looks like pitching's been pretty decent, and the bats are hot, which you're obviously going to need. You need all 3 to go, but looking forward to next Tuesday. Obviously, Dom, you and I will be in Durham to watch them play Duke. Looking forward to seeing them in person, but really looking forward to them having some ESPN Plus games. I don't know who we got to talk to over at the ESPN, but it'd be nice to be able to see our boys.
I wonder
play.
if that's a school thing.
I think it is, and I know we've got stuff to do it. I don't know if it's can't take it to Hickory. I'm not sure, but it sure would be nice to be able to watch them play, especially as they start 6-1.
Well, speaking of that, I believe the CVCC game down in Hickory for basketball was on ESPN Plus, unless it was on another network. But I remember watching that game, so I don't think it's impossible. But maybe how it works for baseball, it makes it more difficult. Like I don't know, like the amount of cameras and different angles they like to get, they're not going to be able to do that. Or what you would think though that like the crawdads have that kind of thing in place, and all you're doing is really taking like the computer to hook it up to or whatnot. You don't think like, I don't know, maybe you do have to take all the cameras and it's just too much. But
I don't know. I've watched some baseball games so far this year where they had like 1 or 2 camera angles and they weren't the greatest. So somebody talk to the ambassador, get Austin and tell him to pull some strings and get him and his boys on TV so we can watch them.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys, okay. No,
one thing I found out yesterday, Dom. This is just like local knowledge for you. So App's catcher the last 2 years, he's a junior now, Braxton Church. He was from West Wilkes down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed he's been DHing this year. So I got to talking to some parents beside me. And the catcher that has kind of not taken his place, but getting some more reps, he's from Providence, which I don't know how much you know about like high school baseball.
Right.
But like Providence is like the cream of the crop in Charlotte.
Shocking.
I was looking him up,
good
and his high school team.
Yeah, the team that's good in everything is good in baseball. You're kidding me.
They went, they went 32-0 in baseball his senior year.
Jeez,
he had the game-winning hit in his championship. The name laps me right now, but 32-0 in high school is insane. I mean, you got to think about the arms you got to have.
Absolutely insane. You're right. Hey, Seth, I'm going to ask you to get rid of that pen in your hand.
My bad.
You're driving us crazy over here, man. Hey, look at this, guys. First comment of the night, Artie Cat. So to let you guys know, this guy's been all over the shows during the football season. He's a huge Texas State fan. So awesome to see Artie come on, jump on the show. Finally, baseball, absolutely. Texas State, yes, Texas State has not had the greatest start, but you got to go look at their schedule to see why they haven't had a great start. They've
been playing Murderers Row baseball.
Yes.
I was looking at the same thing for Georgia Southern, too.
Yes.
Georgia Southern's only got – they're below 500, but you look at who they played.
Yeah. And while we're on that aspect, let's also compare that to App State. They had a hot start last year, too. I think, what did we start, 8-1, 9-1, something like that?
7-0 or something like that. Yeah, they got off to
before. Okay. So, but let's be honest, too. App did not play the toughest schedule to start off with, and they really haven't yet here either. So much like kind of early early season basketball, the tide can turn quite quickly once you get into the conference slate, because now you've warmed up, now you've found your guys. You know, some guys get hurt, but obviously if your guys are healthy coming in, some of these things are going to change quite quickly, and it's going to kind of surprise some people. I mean, for instance, just to reference, since we have App up on the screen now, in basketball, early season, they got beat by 20 points by Northern Illinois in that MAC Sunbelt Challenge. Now they're the best team in the Sunbelt. So, and then you've got Georgia Southern on that aspect, who was completely winless in out-of-conference slate, and then came into the Sunbelt, and they've won 6 games, I think it is, in basketball. So I don't try and get up too high or too low, but, I mean, we did call this episode The Top Teams Keep Winning, because right now they are. So that's a good start for the conference.
To follow
overall.
up on your point, Don, I think we mentioned in the first episode when we were all just getting started, you can make up 3 games in 3 days. So baseball's such a long season. You could be slumping right now, and then by the end of the year, you can go on a 15-game run just like that.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think on the downside of that, I think South Alabama ended the season on like an 11-game losing streak.
Yeah, the time turn out of the way.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, it's like you said, though, but baseball can be a thing of runs. And, before we jump into the next team, Artie's got another comment here. Next tournament, the Astros Foundation will be rough in Houston this week as well, but you want difficult competition. Exactly. This helps mold your season. So, honestly, just like basketball, baseball is kind of similar. If you're hot near the end, that's more important than results up front. You don't want the results to be blowouts.
Is he saying that Houston's hosting a tournament this weekend?
It may be Houston hosting, but it looks like the Astros Foundation is probably the official host. But Houston's probably participating. I think that'll
be the second tournament they hosted, because I believe Tennessee played in it week 1 in Houston.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to close out that thought before we move on from App State, East Tennessee this midweek, I think East Tennessee's off to a 7-1 start too. So be a really good test early in the season, kind of not at home, to go against a team that's already playing pretty good and kind of see what you got.
Yeah, and a home game for ETSU as well.
True.
Well, I think you find out a lot about App in the next 9 days with ETSU going on the road to Southern Illinois and then Duke next week.
Yeah.
That Duke game will be a very good measuring stick.
Yeah. Duke's a solid baseball program.
Yeah. And getting to Texas State. And
that's Murderers Row right there.
Ooh, yeah.
That's Murderers Row.
You play 3 SEC teams and Houston. That helps mold your future. Look at it that way. No matter what happens, it helps mold your future. So
here's the little darlings.
Oh man, yeah. I'm excited to talk about this. The juggernaut that is Arkansas State. Everyone's forgotten team at the beginning of the season. The coaches, and once again, this is why we don't put a lot into preseason polls. We all know in football, at least, it's like a recent popularity contest. In baseball, you would hope it's not like that. But picked to be dead last, the only undefeated team left in the belt. You can talk about strength of schedule, but man, they went to Ole Miss and beat Ole Miss, and that's an SEC program. And the SEC is the holy grail of college baseball and has been for a while. They win 4-2. They put up 10 hits. I mean, that's pretty impressive to go down there. Obviously, they didn't face a weekend starter, but they saw some arms, right, and still were able to put up 10 hits. So, they got to be excited down there in Jonesboro to get off to a start like this, especially once again, picked dead last. They swept Lindenwood. There were 3 close games, to be completely honest. They weren't blowouts. I don't know anything about Lindenwood baseball. But hey, to get 3 wins is to get 3 wins. They did have to have a walk-off in the 11th on their last game. Pitching seemed to be pretty good on both sides. I don't think anybody had a big score in that series, but they got Central Arkansas coming up midweek, and then they go to Missouri State, who just got done playing Southern Miss. They played ULM to begin the season and took 2 out of 3 and took a game away from Southern Miss on the road. So should be a good test to see if Arkansas State's is as good as they look right now. But, man, 8-0, heck of a start.
Yeah, no kidding. It's Central Arkansas and them play like in every sport, it seems. It just makes geographic sense, I guess. But, they play.
They have. I was looking before we came on. They have had a little bit of luck with their schedule. They've been at home all but the Ole Miss game, so that's done them a little bit of favors. But
yeah,
it's fun to talk about them every week. Until conference. Like Marv was saying, the schedule is pretty favorable, so we'll see.
Yeah,
when do we get into conference? Mid-March, I think.
Is it mid-March? I'm just going to scroll down here.
Mid-March, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Mid-March. I think this weekend's interesting. I don't think, obviously I think Ole Miss has been their toughest team to face so far. I don't know. On a one-off game, I'm still taking Ole Miss to be better than Missouri State. However, you're playing a Missouri State, like Marv has just said, and it's already played some Sun Belt teams and taken some games. You play them 3 times in a row. We just saw them play 3 close games against Lindenwood. Again, we don't really know the Lindenwood program as well as these teams in the Sun Belt, but you got to think that that's going to be a little bit tougher of a draw. We'll have to see if they keep that train rolling with those undefeated, with that undefeated mark as of right now.
Still undefeated this time next week. We can, we can definitely have a conversation.
No, absolutely. Tim's joining the show. First time I've seen a comment from Tim, so appreciate that, Tim. Strength of schedule is a factor with Arkansas State at this point, but they deserve the credit. A win is a win, and they have been collecting wins. And he is a Georgia Southern fan, so he's giving them full credit for that. Absolutely. It's like we said, it might not mean much as far as what late season is going to provide you, but it's going to invigorate the fan base, right, to come out to games.
Enjoy it now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And baseball's a game of momentum, so who knows, man? You get this thing rolling, and everybody's playing with a chip on their shoulder, knowing that they were picked last, and who knows what happens. Yeah, absolutely. It's that team factor too, right? Like once you start thinking it and believing it, you become it. And I feel like that's early season Arkansas State right now. They know they're good now at this point. They probably thought it early, then they beat Ole Miss, and now they're rolling right along. It's just a gravy train for them right now. So get the boys believing.
Yeah. So Coastal Carolina. So, just so we explain the graphic, they went 3-0, but they didn't play the same team. Over to the side here, we've got the results for them. They beat Illinois 17-9, All State 12-2, and they just absolutely hammered Cincinnati 25-2 on Sunday. I'm trying to think if I tuned into one or two of these just for a few minutes. I didn't watch much of it. None of these games really all that close, I guess, right, guys? Yeah, I got to watch a couple. So that first game against Illinois had a 3-hour rain delay in the middle of it. But, man, the preseason number 1 team finally played like the preseason number 1 team. Their last weekend tournament, lose to Duke, no shame in that. Duke's a solid baseball program. Indiana might have been a little bit of a shocker. Coastal has not played away from home. They've had 2 tournaments back-to-back at their house, but man, when you put up 54 runs in a weekend, there's a lot to be said for that. They're hitting the ball pretty well. I know in that Ball State game, their starting pitcher through all 7 innings, it was a mercy rule, but he only gave up 3 hits in 7 innings. So, when you get arm going like that, good defense behind you and you're hitting the ball. And then Cincinnati, I think they put up 12 runs in the first inning. Their first at-bat was a home run. They put up 12 in the first and never looked back. So, man, they're playing really good baseball as of last weekend. They do have Campbell coming to Conway on Tuesday, and Campbell's ranked
21st.
21st. Yeah. So the Fighting Camels are going to come to Coastal and try to take a game from them. It's a really interesting midweek matchup. Hopefully, I think that one's on TV. We've got baseball practice tomorrow night. Probably won't be able to watch it, but I'll be looking at the stats.
Marv, obviously the bats are there. Are the arms there too for Coastal?
I mean, their Saturday starter threw a gem, going 7 innings, giving up 3 hits, 2 runs. That's great. And then obviously only giving up 2 runs on Sunday. So who knows? Maybe it's first weekend jitters the first weekend. Once again, you lose to Duke. There's no shame in that. Duke's a great program. I don't know what Indiana's going to turn out to be, but man, they played pretty well this weekend. So I'm really interested to see how they do against Campbell. And then they got Liberty coming down, and Liberty's off to a 4-2 start for the weekend series. So, you dominate all 4 of those games, then it says a lot about them. But it's to be expected. They've got a great program, won a national championship, less than a decade ago. So, right now, in my opinion, that's the team to beat.
Piggybacking, let's go back to talk about Arkansas State. Look at their non-conference, right? And they're 8-0. Let's look at Coastal's non-conference, and they've lost 2. You know what I'm saying? That's not really – I mean, you can dig into it a little bit, but playing the likes of Duke, Indiana, Illinois, Cincinnati, vastly, vastly different with almost an identical record. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A loss to Duke is nothing to – it was close. It was a close game, right?
It was 5-3 maybe?
Yeah, I just scrolled past it. Hold on one second. 5-3, yeah. Man, see, look at this. Marv doesn't even have to look at notes. He just knows this stuff off the top of his head.
I've watched an absurd amount of Sunbelt baseball these first couple of weeks.
It'd be interesting to see if Arkansas State had played the same schedule as Coastal to see where they would be right now, is all I'm getting at.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. But, again, by the time they could possibly play some of these teams, maybe it's a different – but you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think they're 8-0 if they play the same schedule as Coastal Carolina.
That's why games.
Yeah. We got to have Coastal take all 3 against Liberty just for a personal thing. I think. And by the way, real quick, before we move on, Campbell has they're in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, for those that don't know. It's a small little area. You'd never know if you drove past it. But they have something called a creek dog. Have you guys heard of this?
No. I've actually been to campus. They got some money down there in Bowie's Creek. That's a super nice campus.
You ain't kidding, man. That thing is phenomenal. A lot of private school money coming in there. Their facilities are really second to none besides, the overall size of some of this stuff. But the how they look and how new they are. They could get up there to be like the next kind of Liberty if you're not school size wise, but as far as a team in a program you need to watch out for on the regular.
While we're off topic, fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Marv, have you noticed what East Carolina's done this year?
Oh, East Carolina's off to a great start. Took 2 out of 3 from Carolina. Yeah, that's so. Kind of sidebar. Born and raised in Greenville, North Carolina. Man, growing up playing ball, we used to go to watch ECU games all the time. The outfield's called the Jungle, and now the stadium looks completely different. But it used to be all trees, and you didn't have to pay money to go sit in the jungle and just sit there and heckle the other team's outfielders. But
nice.
ECU's got a heck of a baseball program, and off to a great start. Yeah,
absolutely. That there's no doubt about that. And Carolina's right here down the road, but took it to them. The Creek Dog, to get back on that real quick. I don't even know all the things off the top of my head, but this hot dog is loaded with all kinds of stuff, and the flavor is really tremendous. I've seen 2 people rate it, and both of them give it, I think, a 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10. So at some point, Bowie's Creek's not far. I got to get to the game and try one of these things. Unfortunately, this game is in Conway, which is twice as far from me than Bowie's Creek is. But it's funny. I can go through Bowie's Creek on the way to Conway if I wanted to because of how it takes me. So if it was the other way around, I'd definitely be going to Bowie's Creek to check this out. Maybe I'll just have to go to some random game because I don't believe they host any Sunbelt teams this year. But Tim's got a comment again, too.
They actually host Georgia Southern this weekend.
Oh, it's this. Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and that bodes well because Tim's got the comment, the Georgia Southern fan. The Camels face Coastal Carolina this weekend. Yep, and the Camels come into J.I. Clemens at Georgia Southern. They go to Georgia Southern though. Okay, yeah. Campbell looks to be tough. I guess we're all going to find out by playing two Sun Belt teams this week. Yep, or by playing two Sun Belt teams this week. They're not both. Campbell's not a Sun Belt team. I think I screwed that up. Anyway, to correct myself. Everyone's gonna find out a little bit more this week about themselves and Camels, but formidable opponent. And I think I've heard that they have a lot of guys on their roster from like overseas, actually, which is kind of surprising to me when it comes to baseball. Like basketball, that doesn't surprise me at all, kind of thing. I even know they have like an incredibly impressive wrestling program there where they probably bring guys in too. But
that's
baseball,
the biggest rival in wrestling.
Hey,
yes.
look, I'm looking up Campbell's baseball schedule right now. So they started their year against UC Santa Barbara, who's number 17. Took 2 out of 3 from them, beat East Carolina.
They beat East Carolina?
Beat East Carolina. So, the commenter was right. Yeah, go to Coastal Carolina and then have a 3-game series at Georgia Southern. And then their next midweek game is against Carolina. So they did not shy away from playing some competition. So good for the Camels.
So they're not playing Suey?
Don't think no, not that I see.
They left that for a filler game later on in the season. Jumping on, okay, so this is perfect segue. So the Georgia Southern, a team we just talked about, did play Mississippi State. They go 1-2 ultimately. That first game, a 5-1 final. I watched a little bit of that one. I thought that game was rather close. I think if I remember right, Mississippi State jumped out to a 5-0 lead. Georgia Southern gets 1 run later on. But you gave up 5 runs, but defensively you shut it down a little bit better. Pitching got a little bit better after that. So props there, and that maybe helped turn that tide a little bit towards Saturday's 11-4 victory, but ultimately losing 10-2 on Sunday there. Ultimately this isn't a surprising thing, but like we talked about, this is another tough road for a Sun Belt team to start their non-conference slate with, I guess, right, guys?
They got a SEC win and ACC win to start with. They got Georgia Tech and Mississippi State. It's a little bit hard to tell right now. 2-5 against 2 of those were against SEC power teams. So a little hard to tell right now. Maybe our commentator have a little bit more to say about them. I don't have a whole lot about Georgia Southern right now. Like we talked about with Campbell next weekend, we'll find out a lot about them that way.
Yeah.
But a win against Mississippi State, Georgia Tech's nothing to turn your nose up at.
Yeah. They do have a. Oh, go ahead, Marv.
Watch a couple innings of a couple of their games. I don't think their record right now is indicative of how good they are. They got some dudes on that team from what I saw. I think
they had Maryland beginning of the year, correct?
Maryland beginning of the year, yeah. So I actually think they're going to be a pretty decent ball team, just from what I've seen. If you look at the Maryland series, they never got blown out. A 10-2, it can go either way. But I think they're actually a pretty good ball team.
Yeah. I heard some things before the season started. They expected to be pretty good this year. And again, like you said, a tough slate to start with, but I think that record speaks towards the fact that, as Marv said, they've got some talent on that team. And once they play a little bit lesser of a competition, maybe you're going to see that tide turn quite quickly. They do have a midweek game on Wednesday against Jacksonville. That game is in Jacksonville, but as we know, Georgia Southern, Statesboro, Georgia, real close. That's barely a road trip to get from there to Jacksonville. So should be easy one. And Tim did chime in, so let's see what he says about that one. Georgia Southern went 1-2 games against Maryland, Big Ten champs last year, and then led Georgia Tech until the 9th inning. So yeah, exactly.
Okay. Maybe I read that wrong.
Yeah, this team is not far off from where they want to be, I bet, if you ask them. And again, these tough games help kind of shape your season, and you figure out some things as you go along. Artie's asking, isn't Campbell ranked number 21? I think, did they jump up, or are they right there in the 20 area?
It's depending on where you look, it's 21 to 25. There's a couple different rating systems. They're a top 25 program. They're a good program. Yeah,
definitely.
Look at the talent. Look at the baseball teams just here where we're at in North Carolina.
Yes, there are, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read earlier today, there are 5 or 6 teams within the Carolinas all in the rankings right now. which is insanely impressive. I mean, when you hear that for like basketball, that's not really surprising because you've got, Duke and Carolina, and then you might have, Clemson or somebody else kind of in that area rounding out some teams. But for baseball to be that much of a power in this area of the country is really, really impressive. So, yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what Georgia Southern can pull off. Speaking of their favorite team, Georgia State now comes up. They win against Seton Hall. I didn't know much about Seton Hall. They end up going only 1-2. Again, this is a team that finished about middle of the pack last year, expected to finish worse. Didn't we say that in the coaches poll? I think this year they kind of went down quite a bit. They get hammered in their first game. They lose 14-5. They just barely miss out on a victory in that second game, losing 14-13. A lot of runs in that one for both teams. And then they win on Sunday, 3-2 in a close one as well. I don't know. I think we'll get to this at the end actually, but we did call this series. We all took a shot at calling this series. I think one of us got it right, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
I think that was you, Marv. I think it was you.
So, I mean, Georgia State was picked to be 11th. I didn't get to see any of the games, but I definitely read all the recaps. In their second game, they had 16 hits. Hard to not win a game when you have 16 hits. I don't know the back and forth nature of that game. I do know that they had three guys that hit 3 home runs in the series. So, they had some bats come alive, and it looks like their Sunday pitcher pitched 7 innings. Tough break in the middle game. You squeeze it out in the last game, 2-5 starting off. They've got Georgia Tech midweek, and then they got to go to they're going to Western Carolina for a 4-game series. One on Friday, a doubleheader on Saturday, and a game on Sunday. So Western Carolina's 3-4 to start the season. Georgia Tech's probably going to be a tough game, but that's not even a road trip. They can walk over to that stadium.
Just carry your bags, fellas.
Yeah, just walk across the interstate there, and you're there. It'd be really interesting to see how they do against Western Carolina. Maybe they can build some momentum. But it looks like they had some bats in the middle game, good pitching in the last game. Put it all together and see what happens.
Yeah, to me, it's interesting that we've talked a couple times about App State, probably even Marshall, James Madison, struggling to kind of play a lot of home games early because of where they're located and the weather and how it tends to be early. It's interesting that they got Georgia State to come up to Cullowhee, where literally it could be snowing. You know what I mean? Like it's still that season up there where it's a possibility. So I am surprised to see they're actually, not that they're playing them, but that they're traveling to Cullowhee to play that game. I guess it's a lot easier when it comes to baseball than something like obviously football, which they wouldn't do, or basketball even, something like that. Tim's chiming in again. We know that Sunbelt runs through Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss, but here at Georgia Southern, we're hoping to stand our ground this season. A lot of good teams in the Sunbelt. Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that early on again. Arkansas State with that hot start that really no one saw coming. Seton Hall logos look like a seafood chain.
That's
comment of the night. If we could give away an award for that, that's funny.
Yeah.
Dom, all but 3 teams have 500 records in the Sun Belt. I think we're all looking forward to conference. Once conference gets going, everybody beat up on everybody a little bit and see, everybody, it'll kind of spread out from there.
Yeah.
The contenders will rise to the top, but this non-conference has been fun to watch for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. So we covered Georgia State there. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. All right. James Madison, again, off to a good start. A little bit of a surprise. I guess they're not off to as hot of a start as some of the other teams. They're 5-3 overall, but they sweep Fairfield over the weekend. Again, kind of like Linwood, I'm not familiar with Fairfield and their program as well. They had a couple close games, but they win big on Sunday, 16-4 to round out the sweep. Did anybody take in any of the Dukes games against Fairfield this weekend?
Dom, you know who those 3 losses were to?
Oh, off the top of my head, no. I can't remember right now.
Number 2 ranked Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah.
That's right.
Which they took 1 from them.
They did. Yes, they had, there was a 4-game series there, right? Is that what it was?
Correct.
Yeah, yep. It was a 4-game series, so they took one of 4. But still, the one game was really close, I think, right? Like it was a 1-run game or something like that. I could pull it up right here. No, that's the one they won. 6-4 in the first one. They lost 6-4, and then they only lost 4-0 in the fourth game. Then they go beat Virginia Tech by a run. So yeah, this is a team that's tough to beat, and obviously getting a sweep against a Fairfield team this weekend. I think that one was all at home.
It's a little tougher for James Madison midweek. You know who they got midweek this week?
Who they play?
Yeah.
George Mason.
Oh, well, we watched George Mason in that Coastal tournament, and they can give us some points.
Yeah, which is interesting because coming into that, remember they were a regional team from last year,
Right?
Yeah. Who's their weekend series against this weekend?
Cornell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't know much about Cornell, but I think that they've been pretty good every once in a while. I think at least. It's Cornell. I'm trying to think of
JMU had 5 home runs yesterday.
5? Wow.
Yeah. My man Coleman Cabrizi, Coleman, we're trying to get you on here, buddy. Had 3 straight. He's got 3 straight games with a home run so far. So, then Brendan O'Donnell yesterday he went 3 for 3 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs. This team's sneaky. I've been following them quite a bit. The bats are there. It's just going to be a matter of the pitching coming through for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Already saying JMU and Southern Miss both have schedule that is weak this year. Yeah.
Number 2 team in the nation to start with. It's not too shabby.
No, yeah.
No, yeah, that one's tough. And you know, to see the overall schedule or pull it up right now and look at it all at one time, it's hard. But I will tell you this, and everybody knows this: the Sun Belt ain't easy. So you've got what did we say? 5 teams that made NCAA regionals, and then obviously Southern Miss goes.
Southern Miss was 1 game away from going to Omaha.
Yeah. I think we said the first 2 podcasts, one of 4 conferences to put 5 teams in a regional. So they'll battle it out here in a couple weeks. Yeah, and I saw Kara Ritchie for Arkansas State. She does local radio there in Jonesboro and covers Arkansas State Red Wolves. Has been on the podcast when we did the football preview for transfer portal and signing class. She knows her stuff really well. She brings up a point. She's saying that some people have like a mid-major baseball poll. It's like there is no mid-major in baseball. Plus the fact the Sun Belt should not be considered a mid-major conference when it comes to baseball. This conference is better than the Big Ten when it comes to baseball. You're going to get a couple teams from the Big Ten in the tournament, sure. That's just how it works when you have Power 5 status when it comes to football. But the Sun Belt, make no mistake about it, is not here to be played with when it comes to strength of their conference as a whole. So I don't think most people want to be included on some mid-major baseball poll. We're looking at the top no matter where you're looking at it from.
I think when you hear about a football team, if you hear about Michigan, you automatically think Michigan has a good baseball team.
Right.
You know how that works. Like,
doesn't always translate over like that.
No.
And you speak about that, Syracuse doesn't even have a baseball team.
Really?
Yes. No.
Huh.
They did have one. They no longer have one. They do have a softball team, Title IX. You would think that would even out. For whatever reason, it doesn't. So yeah, really interesting. We covered that again with another former guest with TJ O'Sullivan when we talked some MAC Sunbelt basketball preview because he covers Syracuse up there in New York. But he's a Coastal Carolina grad. So to explain why he was on the show. But anyway, jumping over to the Cajuns, they play Rice. This one, not really a real long road trip for them. I think Rice is located right there in Houston, guys. Am I right with that?
Yeah.
Houston, Rice? Okay.
Yeah.
Smaller private school, but one that the guys on Rage and Review have actually mentioned this. Very, very inviting staff. When you go to Rice and you buy a ticket, they will call you and ask you if you're coming to any more games. And the guys that work for Rage Review are like, well, I'm not even a Rice fan, but he's like, the fact you're doing this makes me kind of want to buy a ticket and go to another game, right? Like they're putting the effort and the money towards trying to keep people coming around and coming back. So A+ for that. But they do take 2 of 3 from the Cajuns. I guess, is this a surprise? We knew this one was probably going to be tough going in, right? I
don't think we'd be surprised if it went 2-1 the other way. like I think Marv talked about last week, Rice is a relatively baseball team known every year Rice is in it. And I think it was a good series. It looks like, it was competitive minus maybe Saturday. But I think it was a good non-conference test for the Raging Cajuns. But, we'll see what comes of it going forward.
Yeah. I always think it's weird, too, because like a 6-1 score, right? Like that looks like it's not that close. And to be all honest, I did not check in on this game at all. But, you got a 6-run score, but at one point in, the bottom of the 8th, you could have had 3 guys on base with a batter who typically gets on base, but, struck out or flew out or something. That 1 run scores 2 runs, and that game becomes way closer. But you see a 6-1 score, you don't know those things, right? So it's baseball is weird in that aspect where you can usually look at a football score and know, they were a 3-touchdown winner and it wasn't close. 6-1, you think comfortable win, but maybe not as comfortable as it may appear from the outside. But interesting there.
And it looks like Louisiana this weekend's playing in that same tournament. So they've got Vandy, LSU, and Houston coming up. So not an easy road ahead of them.
No, definitely not. And Tim's mentioning Louisiana was supposed to be pretty good this season. So the rumor mill goes.
Preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have, and we talked about this with Austin last week, anytime you have a rowdy fan base who packs the place, is loud, excited, they love their baseball down there in Louisiana. So even if they're only supposed to be okay, once you get closer to that season, you're always going to start talking about how good you're going to be because it's just exciting. It's back. You're looking forward to it. So I think some of that may be, expectations that might have been just a tad too high. But again, this is early season baseball. Stuff can change. Speaking
Question
of change,
for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
When do we come on here and say this was expected, this wasn't expected? This was a shot, this wasn't a shot. We're 3 episodes into this now. When do we start? When does our sample size grow a little bit to where this was an upset, this was not? This was, do we wait until 2 weeks in the conference or?
That's
when
I was thinking.
If Arkansas State drops 2 in a row this week, was that expected? How far into this season are we going to get to where we're like, this was predicted and this, what I'm saying? Like, what are we thinking here?
If you're asking me, once conference play starts at all, we should have a decent sample size of out-of-conference play before that begins with ranked teams, non-ranked teams. Like, hey, they struggle against the teams that are ranked or are really good with winning records, and then they blow out the teams that they should. So I think if you're asking me, in my opinion, that's when we can start really saying something's like a shock or surprise. Obviously, I just want to get thoughts and feelings early on. So, like, yeah, I would have thought that so-and-so would have won this game or not, but when it comes down to harder and faster evidence, I would think once conference play starts, and specifically after that first weekend of action, like you said, maybe that second week, really start feeling out where we think teams should end up or where they should be. Unless you guys, obviously share your thoughts too. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I think after the second conference series, you'll have a big enough sample size, and out of conference, you'll kind of see, were some of those wins quality wins? Were some of them upset wins or upset losses? What does the team really look like? I think we're probably a month away from that.
Fair.
I agree.
Seth, is that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Tim's chiming in too.
I'm looking forward to that first ASU's first. Excuse me. They play Queens and then they open up with Coastal at home a Friday night at 6:00. You've already played 15 games before your first home game, so I'm kind of counting the days down to that. Hopefully that'll be a good test to see where they're at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, that Coastal series, because it's not a one-off, it's a series. You're really going to see where you're standing there when you play 3 times.
And hopefully good weather in Boone and the people come out.
For sure.
Yeah.
As we've learned with basketball, you win and they come.
Yeah, very true.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, absolutely. Tim's saying, I'd say hold teams accountable for expectations once the season is a week 2 into the conference. Yeah, so he's pretty much agreeing with us there. You got to give these teams a little time to find their guys and move some guys. I mean, you're probably moving some guys around a little bit in the rotation right now till you really solidify where some of these dudes are looking to stay at. Artie says ULM will drop off fast in conference play. I'd say that's probably true. They tend to do that in most sports. So this is unfortunately for them, the least funded team in all of Division I athletics.
Does that go for football too?
Yeah, just in general, the program as it's constructed is the least funded one in all of Division I athletics.
Doug Dynasty money floating around down there.
You would think, right? You would.
But
think.
you got to think about football. Football, they've had some huge upsets in football.
Yeah, they beat Bama when Saban was
They beat Arkansas.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure they beat LSU.
But if you go back and look, I did this before the season started. So I look back at like former FCS champions who moved up, and a good amount of those have come from the Sun Belt. That's why you're seeing the Sun Belt be successful in football. ULM made it to a championship in FCS football before moving up, and that's what preluded the move up. Right, like we're really good, we should move up now. This was
national championship.
They made it to the national championship of FCS football, and they were beaten, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe if Tim's on here still, he can tell us. I believe it was either Arkansas State or Georgia Southern who beat them for the FCS national championship.
Name that running back.
Who from Georgia Southern?
Yeah,
Adrian Peterson.
Name that coach.
I'm not going to say his name.
Oh,
Eric Russell.
He's a legend in Avery County, man.
Yeah.
Paul Johnson.
I was okay.
Gotcha.
Sorry. We got to talk football every now and then, man.
Oh yeah, we'll throw it in there. Well, we're mentioning something that makes sense, right? And you're going to see why that makes sense when you're talking about all the other athletics that are struggling as well. This is quite frankly is a team that people have talked about going back down to the FCS level. They have, I believe, one winning season in like forever at ULM football. No, for football. For football. Baseball is kind of hit or miss. It's more all over the board, but typically not real great.
They had some well-known coaches though on that roster.
Yeah.
Rich Rod, Bowden.
Yeah.
Bowden. Yeah. No longer there in Bowden, but Bowden.
I've
for a little while.
heard that's the worst place to travel for as a football team. It said no fans show up. You have to. The turnaround time to come back is just it's a terrible place to go. I'm sorry.
Well, it can't be that much better for baseball then, right? I mean,
no.
I've not seen their digs that I can remember specifically off the top of my head for baseball, but I know their football stadium's got the weirdest looking shape to it. It's like that one side is monstrous and like straight vertical, doesn't kind of go like back gradually. It seems to go real aggressive, and the other side's really tiny. And like you said, if you don't have people in the stands and something like that, it's going to feel weird. So when you see teams go there and not play well, like Seth said, you understand a little bit.
Is it a home team advantage to be such a terrible place?
Hey, you know what? We saw how good App State was at the end of the year, right? Making it to the championship. They had to win on like a 50-something yard field goal?
Yeah.
Was it 50?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 52, 54, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Incredible.
I can talk football all day. We got to get baseball going.
Yeah. Back to baseball. So they played the Murray State Racers. I love that logo, but I will tell you, it reminds me more of the Kentucky Derby. So anyway, they go 1-2 against Murray State. I'm not really, again, sure what Murray State program-wise. I know they're based in Kentucky, not too far from Nashville. I think that they'd have some baseball talent over there. Obviously, with a 2-1 victory over ULM, they got enough. But I don't think I did not tune into any of these games. I'll be honest with you.
Me either. Yeah,
I believe that one was on the Ocho.
The Ocho, yeah. ESPN, the Ocho. Oh, look at this. We're going. We got comments that I hadn't seen. I wasn't looking over there. You all, yeah. So we had that one. ULM won a championship.
Oh wow!
They won a championship in 1987. Okay.
It wasn't Adrian Peterson then.
No, it wasn't. There was one. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was Arkansas State versus Georgia Southern for one. I was remembering that there was two now Sun Belt teams that had matched up previously for an FCS championship, and obviously one prevented the other from getting one. Monroe is a horrible place. Man, they're just piling on over
And we encourage the comments.
Yeah.
As long as they're not about us.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to take a road trip to Monroe and just check it out for ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
A
lot of booze involved.
It'll either be the worst decision we've ever made, or we can maybe change some people's minds.
Well, you know what's funny? I will say this. So, Louisiana, Lafayette is actually, what was that show that was on for a while? It wasn't Cops, but it was like that Live PD, right? You've seen that? Remember that show?
Yeah.
They had lots of episodes in Lafayette, Louisiana. Lots. But I will tell you, I mean, to me as a visitor, unless I was really like going to look for that, I mean, it wasn't like I was absolutely completely surrounded by it. So I'm wondering what the Monroe area is like, whether it's a safe place or not. I mean, depressing does sound to be true.
Like Marv said, have you seen Duck Dynasty?
I mean, I've seen clips. I was never like
fame.
Yeah, I never watched. One of the guys played for ULM, right? Did he play football?
I think so. I think that's the story. Like I said, I thought that they were financially back in the program. They made a bunch of money off their duck calls and a bunch of money off that show. So, but
the ways we find to fill time.
Yeah. Yeah. Next team.
Wait till you see this comment from Artie Cat. The Sunbelt Syndicate Mad Max van put a turret on it with armor.
Hey, we're going nationwide, baby.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're gonna be like College Game Day, just like the broke baseball version of it. Sunbelt Game Day.
We'll set up at your local Red Roof Inn.
Yeah, there you go. Replacing parts and adding oil every few miles. Keep it on the road. Absolutely. Oh, he's saying Monroe is not a safe place. Okay. So there you go. Definitely the armored vehicle is a must then. All right. So I think we've crapped on Monroe and ULM enough. So we should move on.
Continuing.
Continuing. Marshall. We talked about them, struggled mightily last year, didn't play any real home games because of the stadium aspect. They go and play in a little tournament. I guess it was like a round robin, right? If they had beat Indiana State, they would have, I guess, won the whole thing, or I don't know. I don't know how that works. It looks like it was, maybe it was just a round robin. Everyone plays everybody, and they just crowned kind of a champion. But anyway, they hammer. And we all sent this score around when we saw it. 20-10 over Michigan State in their Friday game. I was impressed. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care if Michigan State's not all that great. You scored 20 runs in a game, and that's huge.
Sycamore was supposed to the regional last year too.
I think so. I think they're solid.
Yeah.
I remember when you sent that text out of that score, I was like, well, dang, maybe this is where Marshall turns it around. They were picked to be towards the bottom, didn't have a great opening weekend. It's like, man, maybe that's it. And then, no.
Still gave up 10 runs, though, even in a win.
Yeah, that's true. Indiana State comes to Hattiesburg, might expose our offense this weekend. That's what Brett says down there in
is that this weekend?
Yeah, that's funny.
A good one.
That's funny because I've got that on my show notes here. Indiana State's 7-0 this year. They're undefeated.
Ooh. Did not know that.
Name that alumni.
Hey, put that on the picks for this week. Southern Miss, Indiana State.
That one, yeah, that's definitely going on there for sure. And like you said, Marshall only loses 5-4 in that matchup. Obviously, that second one against them didn't go so hot, 12-5. But, I mean, they still put up 5 runs. I mean, a pretty good showing overall. I mean, I guess 1-3 doesn't look great. The 12-5 score a little more lopsided. But with where Marshall was last year, these kinds of performances, I think it's a step in the right direction for the Thundering Herd.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anybody know who Marshall plays this weekend?
I can pull it up. Right now, they are looking at Manhattan.
All right.
Jaspers.
It's quite literally another M in green. Like it looks like they're playing themselves when you look at the thing. It is. Let me make sure I'm going to get this right. Yeah, it is their first home game in their new digs. So that'll be cool.
The new stadium.
Yep, I'm going to be checking that one out just for that reason.
Yeah,
they have electricity up there. Nice.
Oh man, yes, I believe they do. Our guys on the Thundercast, if they're tuning into this, will like that one. But yeah, the mighty Sycamores. Yeah, 7-0. I did not realize they were 7-0. I did. You saying that they were a regional team definitely reminds me of that from last season. But off the top of my head, did not think about that. Them and yeah, very few tree mascots in NCAA. So very interesting there. Big Ten backers coming in.
What's up?
Seth and Marv. Hopefully they missed out the part where we talked about the Sun Belt being better than Big Ten in baseball. Or maybe we wanted them to hear that. So let's. Oh man! All right, jumping right along. A team a little bit more regional to us in Old Dominion, going up against Rutgers. I don't know much about Rutgers. What I saw from the Monarchist podcast, the guys that went to the game this weekend, they were impressed with what Rutgers put on the field. And ODU has had some bats, but it wasn't enough to overcome until Sunday. They did get the victory 9-5 on Sunday, but lost 10-3 and 7-6 in those first two games there in Norfolk. And as I let one of you guys—
what's their overall, Dom? Do you have that?
Yes.
ODU start. I think I personally picked them to win 2-1. If you look at that middle game, that could have gone either way. But
right.
I think if I watched them the first week, I think I came away impressed and thought that was going to be a pretty good ball club. Yeah.
4-3 overall ODU is.
Okay.
So not the best, not the worst. I mean, depending on how Rutgers turns out, this result isn't awful. Like you said, that second game possibly goes either way. The only bad result here is that 10-3 loss on Friday. And let's see who they've got this week, unless one of you guys already has it pulled up.
They play ECU midweek, and they have UNC Charlotte.
Those are tough. I know Charlotte was pretty good last year, right?
They got East Carolina coming to Norfolk.
Is that mid-game?
Yeah.
Midweek?
Yep. Tuesday, tomorrow night.
Wow.
Yep.
We'll have to pay attention to that one.
They also, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I can just scroll down here long enough. I believe they return the favor too, and ECU, or they come down to ECU later. I want to say they do. Somewhere here. I don't see it. Maybe they don't.
Yeah, they do.
I thought they did. They do? Okay, I missed it.
April 10th.
April 10th. I'm going to try and get to that one. Like Marv said, I've not been to a game in Greenville. I want to get there. I want to get to some close regional games here while we're unfortunately for Marv and I, Seth's kind of around the corner from App, but Marv and I have got like 3-hour drives to any Sunbelt team.
Yeah.
We are about 3 hours away from Boone, Conway, and Norfolk, and then we're about 3.5, 4, depending on which way you go, to James Madison.
Yeah.
And then I think the next closest two are like Georgia State, which is 6 for us or something like that. So unfortunately, not a whole lot of easy, close road trips, but it is what it is. We'll get to some games here. Artie, before we jump into this one, Artie says, my buddy in the Marines went to Rutgers. It's in Jersey and cold. Yes, it is in Jersey. Not a place I want to be, but my brother lives in PA just outside of Jersey, and it's actually a nice place. Just outside.
Rutgers, the State College of New Jersey.
Well, actually, that's Duke, Marv, but you were close. Yes, no, but do you find it funny that they're in the Big Ten? I feel like that's just like the weirdest thing to me. Like when we grew up, they were not ever considered to be somebody the Big Ten would ever want.
Dude, Stanford and Cal are now in the ACC. I don't find any of that crap weird anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But Rutgers in the Big Ten doesn't make any sense to me. Good for them, I guess. I mean, they went to Michigan when Michigan now national champions in football. They played Michigan decently close in football earlier this year. They had a very mobile quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. So who knows? We'll see what Rutgers does in football down the line. But getting back to baseball, South Alabama takes 2 from Jacksonville State. I think I got one of my first series right. I believe I called this one 2-1, maybe. I know I got one right. We'll see that at the end of this, but
Saturday was their first loss.
Yeah. I chose them for the sweep. I was hot on South Alabama coming into it. I still am. I think they're a good ball club. I got to watch a couple of the games. I think they were some of the later games. So when I got home on the weekend from baseball practice, I was able to watch them. But 2-1, you'll take a series win this early in the season every weekend if you can get it. And kind of looking at their upcoming schedule, they've got Nicholls State and then UNCW all at home. So I think South Alabama's a little bit better than what people predicted. They were preseason 8, starting off 7-1. Who knows? It'll all shake out when conference play comes, but I like what I've seen from them so far.
Yeah, and you say preseason 8. Seth, did you have anything to add there? Because I wanted to bring my other notes up from last year and see exactly where they ended the season.
I think you said they ended an 11-game skid, or at least had an 11-game skid at some point during the season.
Yeah, and I'm going to flip through here because I had it. So they ended 11th, and they lost their last 10 is what it was.
Oh,
Oh, by the way, Marshall lost their last 14. Ooh. So, again, their start to the season, maybe not what they want record-wise, but, again, the results, not bad. Right. You lost 14 straight to end last season. You're already better sitting than you were then. So, yeah.
The one thing I had to add for South Alabama was the Sunday guy yesterday, Cam Hill, impressive stat line. He went 7 innings, 5 hits, 0 runs, 0 base on balls, and 5 Ks. So solid little day there.
Yeah, very solid performance. Jacksonville State, solid team too. I think what are they in the? Are they? Oh no, they just jumped up. So they're Conference USA.
Conference, okay.
What? I assume they are, right? That's what they are for football now. So I'd assume that they're across the board. I know that some of those teams sometimes take a minute to move over, but I believe football's usually the last. So they were.
Are they?
They might have been Conference USA last year. Do what?
Are they in USA? Conference USA?
Yeah, that's what we think. They're in USA. I know they are for football, so it makes sense if they're there for baseball. Jags are pitching well so far, is what Artie Cat says. Absolutely. Been throwing some gems here lately. All right, moving on to Southern Miss Golden Eagles. They took on the Missouri State Bears. They take 2 of 3. I would have – we did not predict this one, but I would have probably predicted Southern Miss to take all 3. I know they had some early season struggles that they weren't real fond of down there in Hattiesburg. None of these were very comfortable wins, right?
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit. Southern Miss, they have some arms. Actually, Missouri State has some arms too. Missouri State does go and play another Sun Belt team this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare. But no team scores more than 5 runs. No team collected more than 10 hits in a game. Actually, 10 hits didn't even happen. So it was a defensive pitcher's weekend. I think this series, early sample size, is probably exactly what it should have been.
Yeah,
but Southern Miss
defense, like you said, though.
They have some really good games coming up. So they got Nicholls State coming in midweek, who's 7-1, and then Indiana State for the series for the weekend. Indiana State's undefeated, so that's going to be a good series. Once again, put that in the picks.
Yeah, for them to host that one at the Pete, as they call it, Pete Taylor Park, that's going to be that's going to be a heck of a matchup. But like you said, they're playing it looks like in Biloxi for the Nicholls State game. I don't know if that's a minor league ballpark that they're kind of doing what App State has done by playing in some of that stuff. But wonder if that Biloxi, not far at all from Hattiesburg. Really.
What's that overall for them?
They are 6-2.
Yeah,
okay.
6-2. So they dropped a game to Marist in their opening weekend, and then dropped one to Missouri State.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The Marist loss a lot more surprising than Missouri State, especially now, like you said, with what we've seen from them after this series, because nobody got much past the other, as we saw from those results. Artie Cat is saying yes, confirming that Jacksonville State is in Junior Conference USA. Yes, absolutely. Holy Week schedule, Batman. Yeah, well, Missouri State, like we said, they might be a little bit more formidable, but Marist wasn't too much of an impressive one to start off with there. Texas State. Artie's about to tune out because he's going to watch this part and then he's going to finally leave. But Texas State goes 1-2, but again, these are not your average run-of-the-mill teams. They play Kansas, lose 7-4 Friday, get beat 11-5 by Kentucky, but then take a big one, 13-4 over Washington State to close out their little tournament there. And Texas State, let me see what they're sitting at right now. 4-3 overall. 4-3. And again,
and listen, one of the 3 losses was at TCU, who's a 5 team, and they lost by 1 run. Get the opening weekend sweep. I don't know much about Kansas or Kentucky baseball, but
Kentucky's pretty solid.
Pretty solid. Okay, but I think Texas State is pretty solid too. They're playing in that tournament this weekend. They got Prairie View A&M tomorrow. So maybe get a little mojo back heading into that weekend. But I think that weekend tournament for them is going to tell you a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
You got LSU. I mean, they have Houston, Texas, and LSU. That's
Murder's Row.
I mean, you know what you're getting with LSU at least. I don't know much about Houston or Texas, but I know LSU's a pretty darn good baseball team.
Yeah. Yeah, not going to be easy, but I would expect a large contingent of Texas State fans to make the trip up there to Houston, not being too far from them down there in San Marcos. I'm surprised we didn't get a comment from Artie about Texas State, how they've been doing so far. Maybe he'll chime in here in a second now that I've called him out. But I agree with Marv. Like, I'm not really sure where Kansas baseball stands on the radar. I mean, Seth, are you aware of Kansas baseball being much of anything, or?
No, not off the top of my head. No,
I get that leads me to think that they're not the greatest, but 7-4 is not a terrible result. First weekend, first game of the weekend. All right, wrapping it up here. I think Troy's our last team. Yes, they are, alphabetically and otherwise. But they go. Was this one on the road actually? No, this was down there in Troy. Yeah. So they take it to Harvard pretty well. The first game being a little close there, 4-3, but then they hammer them 14-3, 11-1 to round out a series sweep against the. As I saw one Troy fan put up, we took it to the nerds and we swept the nerds. So did anybody watch any of these ones?
I followed it on Twitter. Impressive stat for Troy is yesterday's 11-1 was their 5th run roll of the year.
Ooh!
In 8 games. They've run rolled 5 games.
Wow.
Cole Myers is leading the squad with 6 home runs in those 8 games. 19 runs scored with 6 stolen bases. He's on base 0.718 at the time. 718 percentage. Yeah.
Wow.
Troy's a dangerous team, boys. I'm telling you right now, they're killing the ball.
Yeah, 5-0 in their last 5 too. So not only a sweep here, but they won 2 games before that coming in. Artie does chime in, said poor hitting consistency so far for the Bobcats of Texas State. And I think he had a typo here because he doesn't want best UT, but I think he means beat UT, horns down. Absolutely. I'll agree with that. I'm not even really like a Texas hater, but I hate the fact that they get offended when you do the horns down. So horns down even more for that reason.
So Troy coming up, they've got 2 games against Kent State midweek, and then their weekend series is Northwestern State.
Quickly, do you guys know where Northwestern State is?
It's in the northwest part of name the state.
Yeah, which state? Which state? I'll give you an easy one. What's the state?
Alabama.
Don't look it up. Nope.
Louisiana?
Yep.
Nah.
They had the one-arm basketball player the other year before he transferred, as Seth and I found out.
Now he's at Eastern. Where was it?
Did he go up north?
They played against Aberlin. It's Austin Peay.
Austin Peay. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
The Governors.
The Governors. Oh man. Yeah. So Northwestern State. Being in Louisiana, I wouldn't surprise if they can give Troy a game or 2. I don't think they're going to win the series or anything.
I was just scrolling a little further down their schedule. After that, they play Alabama, then a series with Indiana, and then at Auburn before they get started in conference play. So they've got some games coming before they
win them now.
Yeah.
But then they get ULM to start conference play. So
No.
So they get a bye the first week of conference play is what you're saying.
man, we've talked a lot of crap about Monroe.
Monroe's going to turn it around and make a run now, boys.
Oh yeah, they're going to make us look stupid.
We're also
So Arkansas State's doing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we didn't hammer Arkansas State though. We just didn't think they'd be much of anything because
I kind of did.
Season.
Hey, there's Cinderella going all the way to a regional.
Hey, it'd be kind of cool, right? They would just sneak them up in there. All right.
Show this clip later and be like, "Hey, Marvin predicted it."
Yeah, there you go. I will cut it. I will trim it. To wrap up the week, got to go to the picks.
Mercy.
The fact that we call ourselves the Belt Baseball Beginners makes a lot more sense when you look at this thing, right? So yeah, I picked up my first victory of the season. So I'm grading us hard, though. I will say that, right? Like you have to nail this thing right, or you don't get a check mark. So for those of you who are just doing this on the listening podcast, check out our social media pages. Each week we will take 3 series. And as we found out after the first week, apparently we'll take a few that are just not series because we didn't look closely enough. You know, the Sunbelt webpage tricks you in that regard, right? Like Coastal was hosting the tournament, so their first opponent was just listed the same for all 3 games, even though that's not who it was going to be. Anyways, getting back to this, we will pick 3 series every week and pick who the winner is going to be and by how much. So this is like you're betting not only the game, but you're betting the point spread. You have to get the point spread right to get the check mark. Otherwise, you get an X. But Marv did correctly call the Seton Hall over Georgia State. Seth and I both picked South Alabama to go 2-1 over Jacksonville State. And none of us got the ODU or Rutgers series correct. I think we all thought, I took ODU to take that one in a clean sweep, but I don't know.
I think this is going to be real fun when we start conference. We get really into it then.
Yeah. Yeah, we might even have to do more. I don't know. I like 3, though. 3 fits here nicely. It's a nice, clean look. We've got the records up top. As of right now, Seth is leading the way with 3-3. Marv, 2-4, and I'm rounding it out at 1-5. Ugh.
I'm still gonna ask you change that picture of me. That's
You got to hook me up with a better picture. Then you know what I did. This is a baseball podcast. And so because of that, I tried to find all 3 pictures of us wearing baseball hats, so I could have picked you. I could have had you be like the one guy that wasn't wearing a hat. So at least to keep consistent, I used a picture of you with the hat. So give me a better picture. I'll switch it out.
fair enough.
So that everybody understands that is Marv above his son, who's also in the same jersey. It's not really creepy.
I'm glad you went online clarifying that.
Yeah,
I think it's his son. It could be a random kid. I don't really know that.
No, it's my kid. I want to clarify that.
The podcast is going to be 2 people next week. Marv has been arrested. Oh man! All right. So, any final thoughts? Again, we'll get this week's graphic out. We always do it before Friday afternoon for sure. Give us some time to get these picks in and take a look at what we want to go with. But any final thoughts from you guys before we round out the show tonight?
Man, we're having fun.
Yeah,
we got
fun.
We got viewers. We appreciate we encourage the comments. If you want to tell us we're idiots, we accept that. We agree with you. But no, any fun facts we appreciate. We're having a blast.
Yeah, pick against us too. If you get you sweep it, we'll throw your graphic up there too. We'll have Dom get a creepy picture of you off the internet and put it up there as well.
Very true. Also, at some point we need to wrap in or bring in or include the kids here and just see if they just take better picks than we do, because that will be hilarious. One week we'll just have to put both of them up and see how it goes.
And also, fans, if you're out there, man, if you want your favorite player from your school on here, hook us up with them. We'd love to have more student athletes on here. That would be a lot of fun just to kind of hear about their thoughts on the Sun Belt and how their season's going and kind of their journey to get to where they are. So
our NIL budget's only $1 million, so we can only take a couple.
Yeah. We like to give like a quarter to each one. So
Austin drained us last week.
Yeah. He said
we
he
have
had
some Burger King coupons the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. He wanted a lot of Dunkin' is what he said. So he didn't he didn't clean us out completely, but he took a big chunk of it. Tim, thanks for tuning in. He says, see y'all, got it, Eagles. In case you don't know, get after that. Yo, we do know what that is. Made locally famous by Eric Russell, Hall of Famer Eric Russell. But as Seth said, his favorite Georgia Southern coach of all time is
Paul Johnson.
Why is that, Seth? Is that because of the same name?
A little bit of relation, little ways down the line, maybe third, fourth cousin, but I didn't see any money from him, so I don't claim him.
Oh man, we're not getting our NIL money from him, I guess.
Did you really not know he's Avery County famous? He's from Avery County.
No, you've told me that before, yeah.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
that was new to me.
Nice. All right, fellas. Well, Artie thanks us for a great show. We thank the interaction, man. This was a lot more fun with the interaction. We did have a bunch of fun last week too. I can't skip on that. Austin was an awesome guest. Lots of cool stories that we went over. So if you missed that, certainly go check that out. We even chopped that show up and shared a number of those clips on the social medias aspect as well. So that will round it up for us this week. We'll be back next week with more Sunbelt baseball action for you.